And they are backed up by Kiora, Ashiok, Jace, Vraska, Elspeth, and Ajani.
Not too surprising, the best mixture of blockers in the format, protecting some very powerful planeswalkers.
6 different planeswalkers against Mani Cavalieri, who's running Rakdos aggro.
And how are you supposed to have any sort of read on what Matt is up to when he has a start of 2 copies of Mana Confluence and a Slimming Caryatid?
Well, I would assume he's playing a lot of colors. This is actually going to do a fair amount of damage to him as he drops to 16 right away. Cavalieri had a gnarled Scarhide, but as we saw last matchup, Scarhide and these 2 ones can have trouble with cards like Sylvan Caryatid and Courser Krufix, and those are the cards that Ingraffia has played. He plays Courser, flipping over Sphinx's Revelation.
So Monty's list is very much a mono-black aggro list, Gnarled Scarhide, Tormented Hero. The major incentives he gets from red are Spike Gesture, which is pretty powerful, although not against Courser Krufix, and a couple removal spell in Dreadbore and Lightning Strike, alongside Madcap skills.
So right now, Cavalieri has not been able to deal any damage of his own. He's dealing a lot of damage through Mana Confluences. But this turn, he's going to go ahead and get a Mogus's Marauder that will push Gnarled Scarhide through and drop Ingraffia down to 13.
But now this Courser is unchecked and has the opportunity to make up a lot of the lost ground here for Matt.
Yeah, it hasn't died. Of the main deck removal spells from Cavalieri, it looks like only 2 Dreadbore and 1 Downfall. Those are all the answers he has to Courser Krufix once it's resolved. His other answers are Lifebane Zombie. He has Lightning Strike. That doesn't really help, though.
Correct. So yeah, Mogus's Marauder can cheat it. Madcap skills would not be bad here, but it is slim pickings in terms of answering this Courser Krufix, at least game 1.
Yeah, so we see land off the top for Ingraffia. That's a Hallowed Fountain. We see Ashiok in the waiting. He's going to go ahead and make Jace Architect of Thought and plus it here. And things actually look like they're going Ingraffia's way. His life total is still a little low because of these Mana Confluences, but the shields he's putting up look like they're starting to take effect pretty well.
Especially if he can protect this Jace. Then it makes so many of Manny's threats so much less effective.
Yeah, we're looking to Manny Sand. He has 1 more land at the very least. We'll see how he can push through more damage.
And once Jace is online, it makes the Stranglehold that the rest of your Planeswalkers put together even more potent.
Sure. He's going to go ahead and shock for Blood Crypt, so we're expecting an aggressive turn here. And lead off with another Gnarled Scarhide. And another Mogus's Marauder. This actually, though, won't be enough to take out Jace. He's swinging for 4. And I want to say he's putting the damage onto Ingraffia.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot to be done in terms of attacking this Jace at this stage of the game. You knock it down to 1, he pluses again, and you can't attack. So you might as well get in the damage that you can.
Courser swings for 1. Ingraffia plays a land, goes up to 9. This lands off the top. You see there with his sleeves there, this is the current Squirrel token. This is Force of Squirrel, as opposed to Squirrel Storm.
And this is pretty impressive, showing a lot of the power that these interlocking control cards can have for Matt here. Even opening on 2 copies of Mana Confluence looks like he's likely to stabilize this board.
Yep, and it's going to be Supreme Verdict. Perfectly content to verdict away his own Courser and his own Caryatid now that Cavalieri put 4 creatures onto the board.
And he can still just keep working over Jace here and setting the stage for his other Planeswalkers.
And Jace will go ahead and minus. It reveals a Caryatid and 2 lands. Cavalieri is going to split it, lands and Caryatid, and Ingraffia takes the lands.
So this is a pretty big reprieve for Manny, potentially. If he's able to find something like Spike Gesture, that just clears Jace away pretty clean and easy.
Yeah, he doesn't have that. He does have Lifebane Zombie, and he'll get to see what's going on. It is 2 lands, a Detention Sphere, and 3 different Planeswalkers, Ashiok, Kiora, and Ajani.
And Jace plus Kiora is the fix in a lot of these kind of matchups, because Jace locks down everything small, and Kiora can lock down the one big thing that has managed to slip through.
Yeah, so in Ingraffia's deck, when I'm looking at it, the first thing that sticks out to me is it plays a lot of ways like these band control decks we've seen that are Jace, Kiora, Courser, Caryatid, Revelation. But then on top of that, and like Elspeth, but on top of that, now then suddenly he has cards like Ashiok and Vraska and Ajani in the deck, which are, those certainly are different for the strategy.
Yeah, trying to just have a multi-dimensional attack, and a lot of it is also about handling opposing control decks where every Planeswalker is pretty productive.
He's going to go ahead and bit the, as you said, the stranglehold there. That's Jace plus Kiora. Cavalieri is going to lightning strike. This time he's going to redirect it, though, at the Kiora. So if the burn spells are going at Kiora, what does that mean then for the, you know, for the life total?
Just trying to get the Lifebane Zombie unlocked.
Sure. Spike Jester swings. That's 3 damage. Or 2 damage at Ingraffia. And another Lifebane Zombie shows the hand. It's the same, but this time a Hero's Downfall has been added to it. And all these mana confluences are keeping Ingraffia's life total low, but it still seems like he's in control.
Yes. He's got to be careful. And now that Manny has shown Lightning Strike, it's a whole different tier of risk. Because some of these lists are very creature-oriented, and they just have some Heroes Downfalls and some Dread Boars to clear out blockers. Now that your opponent has demonstrated that they have Burn, you have to be a lot more careful.
Yeah, and we do know that that Cavalieri cast a second Lifebane Zombie into a known detention sphere. So Ingraffia almost had, you know, if he's willing to take damage off his lands, he has the board covered. He can sphere the zombies and downfall the Jester, but he does take damage off his mana confluences in doing that. We'll see a start. Detention Sphere takes care of the 2 Lifebanes. Is he willing to go to 3? Not yet. He's going to go ahead and -2 the Jace. We see Doomblade, Nyx Fleece Ram, and Temple Garden. Nyx Fleece Ram is set off by itself, but that's the card that Ingraffia is going to take, and he's willing to go down to 4 to play it.
And even if Manny rips a kill spell right now for the Ram, then Matt doesn't even die, and the upside here is huge. Now, if he's found Madcap skills, oh, wow.
And that's lethal, isn't it?
Yeah. Of all the cards to steal it from here, not a card you would expect for Manny to have in his list here. That's going to steal game 1.
Wow. A huge draw for Cavalieri, taking a game that I thought was out of reach.
That looked
for him.
hopeless. That looked hopeless. But Madcap skills, really the one card that he could draw that allowed him to ignore the blocker and generate lethal. And Manny with a stolen game there going to the sideboard.
So yeah, and Ingraffia there, he had the option to hold up a Hero's Downfall. He had the kill spell. He took it down because Nyx Fleece Ram seemed like such a safe play in that situation.
Well, and also he's got to be worried about burn spells out of Manny's deck. So getting the Nyx Fleece Ram online gives him breathing space in case Manny does something like draw back-to-back lightning strikes or whatever the case may be. That was really the one card there that punished Matt for his line of play. And because Manny's showed a base black beatdown deck, he's played the black 1-drops, he's played Lifebane Zombie, Mogus' Marauder. It's really hard to put him on having a red spell like that in that spot, but he had it, and now we're on the sideboards.
Yeah. So we'll go to sideboard. Let's start with Matt Ingraffia's deck. Okay, so that game, his deck seems to work great, except for the fact that his first 2 lands are both mana confluences. I feel like that came back to get him.
He took I don't know how many points of damage off those lands. I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 points of damage. If he just has, a Scry land on turn 1 instead of a mana confluence, I think Matt wins that game comfortably.
Yeah, we do see a lot of cards that we've seen against these aggro decks. They are in Ingraffia's sideboard. When you have a mana base like his, you have to think he's going to sideboard well. We see Abrupt Decay. We see another Nyx Fleece Ram. We see Doomblade. Probably can't do that. It's a red aggro deck. But Golgari Charm also in this deck. I imagine the Ram, the Abrupt Decays, the Charms, all boarded in here.
Yeah, for sure. Manny's got 4 copies of Thoughtseize, 3 copies of Ultimate Price, 3 Dark Betrayal, 4 Thrill Kill Assassin, and a Whip of Erebus. He has a lot of legitimate cards to bring in here. The Thoughtseize is, of course, great against a strategy like Matt's. The Ultimate Price, even though Matt's playing control deck, he's shown Nyx Fleece Ram and Corsair of Crufix. So Ultimate Price pretty well suited here, although Manny already has 2 Dread Boards and a Hero's Downfall. How much creature removal does he want to have is a reasonable question. And the 4 copies of Thrill Kill Assassin. I don't know if they're in here to convert into more of a control deck in the appropriate matchups, or if they're just here to punch through Sylvan Caryatid Corsair of Crufix defenses. But if it's the second thing, then those are going to come in here as well.
I mean, Thrill Kill Assassin has got to be better than some of the 2-drops he's playing right now. If you look at, maybe not it's better than Spike Jester, but I do like it more than Spiteful Returns here, for example.
Spiteful Returns a little slow in this matchup. It's not ideal. Now, the Bestow creatures in general are pretty good against control decks because they help a lot in the Jace fight, but it is not a requirement, certainly, to have that card in here.
How do you feel about Lifebane Zombie in the matchup? Matt does play white and green creatures, but they all cost 2 and 3. They're going to be out of his hand rather quickly, and they aren't the high-impact creatures that you're used to taking in a matchup like Monsters.
Well, even if he doesn't tag anything, I think a 3-power Intimidate creature is better than some of his other threats because, it's better at attacking Planeswalkers. If Nyx Fleece Ram or Corsair Krufix are in play, it can still attack through that. So,
all right. Well, we are on to game 2 here. Ingraffia on the play. He's keeping. No, he's mulliganing. My apologies. And Cavalieri is as well.
So this is just a Planeswalker soup over here in Matt's deck here.
Let's talk about the counts of the cards he has here. He is on 3 Kiora the Crashing Wave, 2 Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, 2 Jace Architect of Thought, 2 Vraska the Unseen, 1 Elspeth Sun's Champion, 1 Ajani Mentor of Heroes.
Okay, well, the Planeswalkers are on diminishing returns. I think that I would want to start this base with at least 3 copies of Jace. To me, that's just pound for pound the best Planeswalker. Maybe Kiora, he wants, Kiora's really good at defending against single large threats, and it's possible that Nyx Fleece Ram, Sylvan Caryatid, and Corsair Krufix are very good at protecting himself against a sea of little permanents to begin with, but Jace's power level in the abstract is just so high.
So why don't I start by trying to compare it to the most similar deck that we've seen, which are the Bant-style Planeswalker decks. In those decks, you usually see around 4 Jaces, 2 Elspeth, like 3 Elspeth and 2 Kiora in them. He's down he's down a pair of Elspeths, he's down a pair of Jaces, he's up a pair of Vraskas and Ashioks instead, and then he's added an Ajani.
Hard for me to really weigh in too authoritatively on whether or not those numbers are correct.
All right.
It's just hard to say.
I was throwing it out there. I don't. Yeah. All right. Well, Ingraffia's on the play with the usual start of Temple of Enlightenment into Overgrown Tomb.
Pretty common.
Yeah.
And Matt's got to be thrilled with that because it means most likely no copy of Sylvan Caryatid in Matt's hand.
Yeah. Spike Jester hits for 3 and Ingraffia's down to 17. We'll see whether he can hit any of those 12 creatures in this deck. Remember, that's Ram, Corsair, and Caryatid. Those creatures all very good in the matchup.
And Nyx Fleece Ram was on top of the deck.
And it was kept there.
Yep.
So Spike Jester will swing again. And Ingraffia down to 14. And we're going to see another 2-drop. This one is Spiteful Returned from Cavalieri.
So we'll see if this is going to be a Golgari Charm bloodbath this turn.
Golgari Charm would be great. If the only blocker Ingraffia has is Nyx Fleece Ram, then Spiteful Return's actually very good here, as opposed to some of the times where it will be a little bit of a liability. And we see Ingraffia shocking down to 12.
Uh-oh.
For Nyx Fleece Ram. Yeah, we have 2 blue-white lands and 2 black-green lands. We have seen Ingraffia's taken a lot of damage off his own lands both games.
Yes. But this is a pretty loud signal that you're about to get hit with a Golgari Charm.
Yeah, I would think so. He left up black, green, black, green. 3rd land from Cavalieri. It's a turn late, but if he's going to have a pre-combat spell, this is Mogus's Marauder. And loud signal indeed. Spiteful Returned and Spike Jester get hit by Golgari Charm. And he's going to do it with the trigger on the stack so that the Marauder becomes a 1/1.
Yeah. So there seemed to be some communication here. Not sure if Matt said in response or something along those lines.
Yeah, if he says in response, it has to be like, whoa, in response to what? I guess would be the question. But Ingraffia down to 10, up to 11 again on upkeep though, thanks to the Ram. Just plays a land and passes back.
Now there's a lot of pressure here on Melanie to find some way to kill this Nyx Fleece Ram because the amount of, life is going to gain both from its trigger and from blocking is going to be really cumbersome for Melanie to deal with here.
You look at, I just like Ingraffia's mana base. We have 3 black-green duels and 2 blue-white duels right now. So Lifebane Zombie, the play for Cavalieri. There are no counterspells in Ingraffia's deck, so that's going to always get to, spells will get to resolve. We see Sphinx's Revelation, Detention Sphere, and Hero's Downfall.
So that Sphinx's Revelation, oddly enough, not castable in spite of 2 blue-white dual lands being in play. Because the rest of them are bayous.
Yes, the rest of them do not make blue or white.
But the Detention Sphere and the Hero's Downfall are castable.
Yeah, Rakdos Cackler, the other play for Cavalieri. And Ingraffia's just going to buy time. He's going to Hero's Downfall the Lifebane, as that's the creature the Ram can't block. And, well, he couldn't play the Revelation, but he can't play the Corsair Krufix he drew this turn.
That's a great draw.
Corsair the draw. Flips Watery Grave off the top. And that'll come into play. That'll gain him a life up to 14 and set up the Revelation that's in his hand.
Now everything's online and good to go.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard for many to beat the. I mean, just 2 4s and 0-5s are really hard to beat when there's a Sphinx's Revelation in that player's hand.
Remember, Ingraffia is actually only running 2 Sphinx's Revelations in this deck. Between the 11 Planeswalkers, it was, I imagine, hard to find room for a full set of Revelations.
And he looks at so many cards due to the Planeswalkers that it's not like he's playing just the 2.
Yeah, Jace draws cards, Kiora draws cards.
Courser helps.
Ajani draws cards. Yeah, he has a lot of temples, as you can imagine, in a 4-color mana base. He's playing a full set of 12 temples, but 5 different types. Not 3-3-3.
Sure. This is going to be a tough road ahead for Mounty, though.
Yeah, it's, as we see here, it's going to be difficult. Makes a Spike Jester again. And he's going to swing Mox's Martyr and Spike Jester. Looks like he's going to trade a Lightning Strike for the Courser, I would think.
Yep. Although, with Revelation in hand and, Sylvan Carrington on the top of Matt's deck, this is not a productive line to take. His hand only allows him to do what it can do. Right. I'm not saying it's a mistake, but this is not a path towards victory.
He did trade Spike Jester and Lightning Strike for a Courser of Kruvix. Ingraffia goes ahead and draws the Caryatid, passes the turn, clearly representing a Rev for 3.
So we'll see here how Manny wants to proceed, but
yeah, all right. So back on his turn, he's going to go ahead and tap down to 11 life. He's going to get... We are pausing for a second here.
Yeah, I believe Matt may have mistakenly not drawn for his turn there after his Sylvan Caryatid got turned face down. He was committed, I think, to just revving was the instinct, so he just untapped and said go without drawing for his turn.
Yeah, so that is something I believe you can back up for, especially because we know what the card was. It's a fixable mistake. We know there was a Sylvan Caryatid on top of his deck, and there should be a Caryatid in his hand. The draw step is not a missable trigger.
Right, it's a mandatory game action.
Yeah.
So we have our spotter here right now getting this sorted out.
Now, my one question here, and is that to correctly fix this, you would have to basically tell your opponent there's not a Caryatid in my hand right now. So say there was a Caryatid in Ingraffia's hand, well then that becomes more complicated, right?
Yes. So we're going to be coming back here to the booth while this all gets sorted out. But, that's actually not an uncommon mistake, oddly enough, with Sylvan Caryatid. Anything that causes the normal pacing of your turns to get broken up. If you ever see someone, if I stop you and I say, wait, hold on, and you're up, keep on casting a spell, things like that are very likely to cause people to miss their draw step because they're just so used to the rhythm of...
You're taking a habitual action and you're breaking it up. So it feels weird now.
Right. So, Matt in that spot already had his train of thought lined up there. He knows he's going to rev for sure. That's his plan. So, he puts the Caryatid down after his Courser dies and then just untaps and says go because he knows he's going to rev. But we know that the Caryatid was on top of the deck and there's not one in the hand. His hand is Revelation and Detention Sphere. So
now, my one question would be whether or not, and go ahead and fill in on this, because of the fact that we know in the booth, having seen his hand, oh, there's not a Caryatid in his hand. There should be a Caryatid. He hasn't drawn. Now, can you use that in making a ruling because of the fact that, well, technically your opponent doesn't know that there's not a Caryatid in your hand?
I believe that the policy is no because Wizards has a policy, and I believe it's a correct one, of they don't want matches in the booth to be adjudicated differently than matches out on the floor. So
the camera doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Looks like Matt was able to get the Caryatid in his hand, so the draw phase was corrected upon appeal to the head judge. And so there's a swing so Cavlieri will go ahead and downfall the Nyx Fleece Ram, swing for 4, but Ingraffia will gain 3 on the Sphinx's Revelation.
And now we'll see if there's any sort of powerful follow-up here. You had to imagine Matt's going to put together something pretty impressive this turn, as his deck is chock full of haymakers.
Draw some sort of Planeswalker. We'll see which one it is. This one is, well, he has Supreme Verdict to start, but he did draw Planeswalkers as well. He drew Kiora, the Crashing Wave there.
And that's another great setup turn here for Matt. As you see, his hand is a Kiora, a Vraska, and a Detention Sphere. So he's going to have no absence of power with which to finish off Monty this game.
He's going to cast them all from behind the Sylvan Carrot he made. So now he has Courser, Vraska, Kiora, Detention Sphere. We'll see which Planeswalkers he decides to go for. My guess is Courser, Kiora. He's going to start with Courser, shows Deicide on top of the deck.
And if Monty was debating whether or not he wanted Spiteful returned in Game 3, the fact that a Deicide has been revealed here, I mean, I think that means you have to get it out of the deck.
Yeah. Kiora's played. Kiora was plussed. And Lifebane Zombie shows Vraska and Detention Sphere. At this point, Monty's just gaining information, and this is actually pretty valuable from Monty's side. The 4-color, this isn't a known deck that he's playing against. Like, this deck could be playing anything, right? It could be playing, you know, we saw Golgari Charm. It could be playing Abrupt Decay, right? It could be playing Putrefy. It could be playing Deicide. It could be playing Azorius Charm. You want to know what to play around.
Yeah, there's no end of options that Matt has afforded to him with that mana base. So just looking at his hand is really valuable.
We haven't seen a counterspell yet. Does he play any? You know, these are questions he probably wants to know.
I'm sure that if you made Manny the offer right now of you're allowed to concede the game and in exchange you get to look through Matt's deck, I think he would take it for sure.
Yeah. Gnarled Scarhide was added to the board that turn for Cavalieri, but no attacks. And Ingraffia continues to press the advantage with more Planeswalkers. He's going to Deicide the Scarhide. And doesn't search hand or deck. It's not a god, so of course. Right.
No,
hold on, yeah.
Gnarled Scarhide is the least godly of all.
Thing. It's just a little 2-1. All right, and now Vraska's going to play. Vraska's plussing as well.
We might see the rarely formed Kraken Assassin team this game. It's not a pretty rare treat, but I think it might be in play.
Both. Yeah, they'll happen on the same turn.
Oh, yeah. One of them does the heavy lifting while the other one's kind of sneaking around, you know?
You get to choose which way you die. You can die to a 9/9 or to a 1/1.
It is a choose-your-own-adventure, but in reverse. All paths lead to you dying.
Rakdos Cackler made for Cavalieri. That emptying his hand again. It was cast Unleashed as well. Landing to play for Ingraffia. It goes up to 16. Ships Nyx Fleet's Ram to the bottom. This is more of a formality at this point. We see either of these Planeswalkers would actually be enough to take the game.
The only thing that Matt has to concern himself with is not getting randomly killed by Mogus' Marauder, and he's gained so much life over the course of the game that it's not really in play.
Frosco will go ahead and kill the Lifebane Zombie. No assassins. I know.
Come on, Matt.
Matt said, all right.
So there's the Game 2 handshake there, although players are going to Game 3.
I like that Ingraffia switched the hand on it. Cavalieri offered the left hand shake, and then Ingraffia countered with the right hand shake.
Yeah. You got to keep your opponent guessing, you know.
Business deals are made with a right hand shake.
Exactly.
That's something if you do that, in like, interview class, it's a right hand shake.
Yes.
So.
Now, Mario's going to go back to his sideboard here. I think that because he's seeing Golgari Charm and Deicide, that informs a lot of sideboarding here potentially. I think Gnarled Scarhide and Spiteful Return should all be at the top of the list to come out of the deck. It's not even like those cards are especially good against Corsair Crufix, Nyx Fleece Ram, Sylvan Caryatid guy anyway, but the fact that your opponent has shown those cards specifically means I think they got to go.
I mean, main deck, how do you feel about playing a red-black aggro deck against a main deck Nyx Fleece Ram?
I would just really be asking for a deck check. I mean, that would be, especially if game 1 had happened turn 2 on the play, I would just, come on.
Before you even have a creature on, I'm like, Nyx Fleece Ram blind. It's just like, oh.
You got to be kidding me. But, there's a lot of damage. I mean, Matt's playing a huge cost off of his lands to facilitate all this stuff. This is going to be the real test because turn 1, he can do nothing. And turn 2, there's going to be a lot of draws where he does nothing or the something that he does requires him to take a lot of points of damage. So if Manny even has a draw like Cackler into Spite Jester, Matt will be really hard pressed to win that game. He can, maybe he can play a Nyx Police Ram and try to get to Corsair Crewfix and all that kind of stuff, but he's going to really struggle to beat Monty's best draws when he's on the draw here, so this is going to be the big test.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Ingraffia's deck, I mean, the danger's in the curve of it. Okay, in his main deck, he has 8 cards that cost 2 in the whole deck. And things don't get that much better at 3. So at 3, you add Spheres, Downfalls, Coursers, and I guess Ashioks.
Yeah.
But over half the deck is 4 or more, which, I mean, even when you think about something like Blue-White Control, Esper Control, you know, they don't play, this is more high-end than those decks are used to running.
There's a lot of decks that rationalize a lot of the ways that they're constructed with Sylvan Caryatid. Reed Duke's junk deck being kind of the first one of, it was really leaning on Caryatid to have good draws. Matt's deck is an even further step where the draws where he doesn't have Caryatid, not only is he going to not be able to cast things on time, he's not going to be able to cast certain things at all. We saw that game where he had 2 blue-white dual lands and couldn't even cast the Revelation in his hand until he found another source of mana because 3 of his lands were Overgrown Tombs or Temple of Maladies. So a lot of pressure on Matt to find a Sylvan Caryatid.
He time-walked himself with his lands game 2. Game 1, I actually think lost the game off his mana base. He took 9 off mana confluences.
Absolutely. Monty barely got to attack him in the first game. It was all about the mana confluence start. Now, Matt kept a totally fine hand on the play against presumably an unknown opponent. So it's not like that one has to get mulliganed, but he had all the tools to win that first game and just took too much damage off of his lands.
Yeah, we'll see. Ingraffia's on 6 cards now. He's on a mulligan. But I'd say outside of the mana base, this matchup has looked really good for Ingraffia. I think the fact that he has this 12 creature package in the main of the Rams, the Coursers, and the Caryatids seems very strong against the Rakdos aggro deck.
Spells versus spells, there's no question who has the better deck. It's Matt. But can he cast the stuff on time is going to be the question.
Right. And Cavalieri will put him to the test. It's a turn 1 Rakdos Cackler. If he can triple 1-drop, that'll put a lot of pressure on Ingraffia.
Or Spite Jester is another really powerful opening here.
Yeah. So we'll see here. Did Matt's mana base come together? We see a blue-green temple. He ships a blue-black temple to the bottom. And I think just what you called it, Spike Jester. That's a swing for 5, and Ingraffia is already on a 4-turn clock.
This is the draw right here. This is the big incentive to play a deck like Rakdos aggro. This opening is so good.
Yeah, Ingraffia he'll need a Nyx Fleece Ram almost immediately. Remember, he has very few 2-mana plays in the deck. It is just Ram and Caryatid. And, well, one of Abrupt. I guess he gets to add Abrupt Decays and Golgari Charms after a board. But even then, it's very hard for him to cast those without taking damage. And Mana Confluence puts himself down to 14. But he does have the sheep.
This is a good start. Now, this is going to put Monty to the test to have something like Ultimate Price, Dreadbore, even Lightning Strike would be fine here. But the Ram is an important part of starting to try to stabilize this game.
Yep, swing for 5. That's 3 of its blocked. Ingraffia takes 2 and goes down to 12. Cavalieri, no burn spells you mentioned, and no follow-up play.
Okay.
And another Mana Confluence for Ingraffia.
Perfect.
I love playing lots of colors. I'll throw that out there, but boy, this hurts. This hurts to watch. Yeah. Like, you know all his cards are really cool, but he's gonna just take so much damage. And Dreadbore, cast by Cavalieri. That's huge if this works, and I think it will.
It feels like someone really needed this Ram, too.
And I think so, even if Ingraffia has, say, a Supreme Verdict, the only way he can play a Supreme Verdict, he doesn't play any basics. So either he's going to have to play another Mana Confluence and take 2 for the Supreme Verdict, or he's going to shock and take 3 for the Supreme Verdict. Coupled with the 5 damage this turn, means he's going to be at 6 or 5, even if he has untapped land verdict.
This is what we were talking about a little bit here. Card to card, there's no doubt who has the more powerful stuff going on, but the game isn't always about that. Sometimes it's just about casting your stuff on time.
So Golgari Charm was cast, and it was cast with the regeneration mode for Nyx Fleece Ram.
So that was a tough call there. Matt did have the option to just Golgari Charm away the Spite Jester and only take 1 point of damage, but really wants to keep that Ram around.
Yeah, and I like the choice he made there, actually. I think that was good. He regenerated the Ram. And it looks like he has another Ram in his hand.
It's very good. I mean, he's he's hitting Mogus Marauder territory. And in fact, he is now exactly in Mogus Marauder territory. But if Manny doesn't have it, this game gets turned around real fast.
Down to 7. Ingraffia, his next play, he does have a Courser of Krufix, but I think that's Mogus's Marauder in Cavalieri's hand.
And this is, I mean, you can't ask for better spells here. And it's just going to be exactly 0.
That puts Ingraffia down to 0. And there we go, the match. Manny Cavalieri wins 2-1 over Matt Ingraffia. Rakdos Aggro takes down 4-color Planeswalkers.
And it was literally just the lands. That's what doomed Matt games 1 and 3. It wasn't that he didn't have the right spells. They were all really good. But game 3 there, Manny with really his best opening on the play. Rakdos Cackler to Spite Jester.